Welcome! Today we're going to be talking about setting intentions. This is a great practice that we're going to review today that you can do at really any time of the year. However, the beginning of the year or even a quarter or a month are some really wonderful times to walk through this practice and either establish some new intentions or do a kind of check-in for yourself and make adjustments. Now, I'm a big proponent for utilizing intentions as opposed to resolutions. At the beginning of each year, I think we feel a lot of pressure from external forces that are really trying to tell us we have to realign, we have to reset our focus. We have to do some deep work and prepare to start out on new journeys. Well, this is something I don't agree with for a few reasons. The first being, the beginning of the year, you're coming off a holiday season. You're kind of in recovery mode. Chances are you're feeling energetically depleted, possibly emotionally depleted. And you might also be looking at a slimmer bank account because, hey, maybe you went a little crazy for the holidays. But also, you're in the middle of winter, which just energetically is a much heavier, slower, not exactly what I would call like an inspired time of year to jump on a high energy initiative like setting out new goals and things for yourself. So I do like to advocate for people to sort of take a little bit of time, which is why I didn't post this video right at the start of the year, because it's actually nice to start your year off and have a chance to sort of reset, get your footing under you before you take on a big practice like setting intentions and new goals. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is the difference between a resolution and an intention? A resolution is really just a promise or a goal, and you can make them at any time, right? I do like the idea and I advocate for people to set goals for themselves. However, resolutions are frequently externally influenced and driven. There are things that maybe other people are telling you have to do, or that maybe things that have bothered you that you're trying to create some sort of a solution for, but they're not always rooted in true purpose and really deeply aligned with an internal motivation that's going to allow them to surpass and survive the obstacles that life throws at us. Because we know life throws us curveballs. Life throws us those unexpected challenges and, issues that you have to navigate. And a lot of time, if you have a really specific goal that is not rooted in a purpose or a strong internal motivation, you're not going to see your way through it. The motivation and inspiration and drive to get over that challenge, it's going to fall apart. And if it's not aligned with those deeper intentions and is too restricted, you might just say, oh, this is clearly not the path for me. I don't really think I can find a way around this one. So we are trying to set ourselves up for success this year. We are going to do this intention setting process so that you can move past the resolutions and really set a strong foundation of intentions. The intentions are your direction. They are those directions that are aligned with your purpose, with your internal motivations, and they are going to provide you the inspiration to push back and push past any problems that come your way with certain specific goals. The direction that you're going also is going to give you flexibility, because thinking about the bigger direction is going to give you more options for your goals And when you need to make adjustments to them, you still know how to do so within the parameters and direction of that intention you're setting. So think of setting your intention as identifying what directions you want to go for your year. Also, this is going to give you an ideal time to sort of realign with what it is that you want. What is your success looking like for this coming year or time period that you're doing this practice in? We can sometimes forget what that success is, what it looks like, what it feels like. So part of the practice today is really going to dig into what that experience is, and hopefully will guide us to a clearer picture, a visual of what you want in this upcoming year. With that said, I want you to prepare yourself for this practice. And I'm going to give you customizations. I'm going to give you suggestions, considerations. But this practice, I'm just kind of giving you some possibilities and some cues. You absolutely should make this your own. Feel free to do this in the way that feels most authentic and natural for you. And if the considerations that I give don't exactly fit, you can feel free to get a little creative. So I always like to encourage a nice grounded approach to these practices, meaning don't do these things when you can't allocate some time, some space, and hopefully some quiet. I know that's not always possible during like a holiday season. It's not always possible when you've got a house full of people. So set aside some time to do this practice where you can focus. Now, what you need to do this practice is relatively simple. You could do this with a journal. You could do this with just your phone or a piece of paper. Really, however you want to organize your thoughts, however is going to best help you do that. It may be through visuals. Maybe you want to break out your digital art application and start kind of using that to organize some of your thoughts and thinking. We will go through kind of two main sections of the practice. We'll go through a reflection practice, and then we'll go into a looking ahead visualization. So whatever is going to help you and support you through these two sections is going to be what you need. I initially did this practice for myself with just a journal and a pen. So whatever you need, please find those things for yourself. If you're able to go into a closed space where you can limit interruptions and distractions, turn off all of your devices, approach this like you would a meditation. This is your time. This is for focused, deep work. You could do this while you're in a car, driving from one place to another, but I would really advocate that while you might do part of this, maybe like the reflection portion particularly, while you are in movement, I like to do kind of brainstorms and reflections when I'm doing my morning walks. You're going to want to still be able to document some of the key points and takeaways before we move on to the next section. So find your comfortable seat or put in your earbuds and let's get started. Now, our first section for reflection is going to be looking back on the time that has passed. We're, for just kind of directional sake, we're doing this as the year's intention. So we're going to look at the past year and we're going to identify some key learnings, takeaways, lessons, and that's going to help us as we start to put and piece together this coming year's plan. So if you want to use this as a journal prompt, or if you want to note this down in some other form, I want you to ask yourself the big question: what were my previous year's successes, challenges, and lessons? Now, this can be things that you set out to achieve for yourself. And you can start there just kind of by doing a mental check on where did I land with my last year's goals and intentions? What resolutions or specific areas did I want to make changes to? How did I do with that overall? Maybe you set quarterly goals for yourself. What did that look like? Also, think about what might have come up that was a bit more of an obstacle. Did you see, as you were navigating those specific areas in your life, did you notice any challenges that presented themselves that you had to work around? And ultimately, we're trying to understand what we learned. What were the key takeaways? In the pursuit of those key successes or goals, what were the learnings? What were some key takeaways? To give yourself a little bit more structure to this, you can also think about the different aspects or areas of your life. If you didn't set specific goals for yourself, if you want to expand more beyond, what you did last year for specific goals, you can think broader and you can look at the key areas of your life. You can actually look at a circle of life. You can find them pretty much anywhere, but they're key areas. Things like your career, things like relationships, health, fitness, finance. These are just different aspects of your life. No life is made up of just one of these, but rather there's, the romantic and like love type relationships, and then there's just general relationships. There's the business and the career that you focus on, but then there's also the finance side. There's the environment and home that you build, but then there's also, the world beyond that you might explore and try to educate yourself in. So think about what key areas in your life you really did see change in last year. Were those changes that you worked towards, or were they more things you just moved through? Looking at that broader lens might give you some insights as to what influenced the successes, maybe even some of the challenges, and maybe some of the misses that you had last year. Give yourself some time to think back on this point in particular and really try to document or recall anything that comes to mind. The next question that you're going to spend some time with is, what were the surprises? What were the unexpected shifts or those milestones that ended up making your year? What big moments come to mind when you look back on the previous year, and why? Why do these big moments or surprises or shifts or changes, why do they stand out for you? What did they impact in your life? Why were they maybe unexpected? How did they come up and how did they resolve? this is a question that may bring up some more challenging things, particularly areas that we don't really want to focus on, changes that we couldn't control. But these are important moments to note because we can't predict what's going to come for us down the road. But it is helpful and it is very informative to our kind of self-awareness to understand how we react to these unexpected moments. If we're reacting from a place of fear, what can we learn and take away from that? If it was a milestone that really shifted all of our opportunities, then what did that direction change do for you? And how, think about how might that carry forward? It's just as important to learn and observe how we navigate the great success-driven moments that we achieve, as well as those other big changes in our lives that we don't see coming, that may be a little bit more difficult, but also maybe just as monumental. So to wrap up this section of the practice, allow your mind to wander a little bit and do kind of a chronological check to just see, the month of January, what was something that I observed? What's something that stood out to me? Maybe it didn't fall into a big category of successes or big changes and shifts, but maybe just looking at your year month by month and thinking about what stood out to you in this point in time is very relevant to how, even on a subconscious level, you might want to be keeping this in mind for the coming year. Now, once you have all of these insights, all of these reflections noted, and you've got them kind of organized, you can always feel free to spend a little time organizing them however best serves you. Once you have these, we're going to go ahead and move into the second part of this practice, which is the looking ahead. It's visualizing the year ahead. This is something that you could do. You could do the first part one day and then walk away and come back to this next section. But if you're still feeling engaged and you still feel like you have the energy to do it, then taking this time to visualize is really where I think the magic happens, where you're going to create and identify some key areas of your life that you are feeling kind of pulled towards. And also you're going to see and experience some of the things that will help direct your year, but also give you a lot of insight into what you want to focus on as far as goals under each of the intentions you set. So why a visualization? A visualization really allows you to look beyond the life and experience that you're living right now. And it is giving you permission to see a life that is different. And this is where I think a lot of times we don't do this process for ourselves and we just sort of take inspiration from other people. But we do that with the same limited approach that we took with our current life. We want to open up. We want to break down the walls. We want to see the possibilities that exist beyond what we know right now. And how we can see this life with intention that we can also then use as a map that can lead us to the choices and the different actions that we can take that lead in a different way, in a different directions, down a different path. Ultimately, visualizations are a great way to let down that conditioned thinking and the programming that exists in our minds and think a bit more creatively, but also allow that emotional aspect and that kind of like deep heart well of information and insight to inspire you around what your purpose is, around what your true motivation is. So tapping into that is all possible with a visualization. But I'm not going to limit you on how you do this particular part of the practice. You can do this with a series of journal prompts for yourself. You can do this with a meditation, to which I actually have a separate video that I am posting that has a visualization for intention setting. And that is going to walk through these same kind of prompts and areas, but it's going to do it in a more meditative way. You can do this by just sitting down. You could talk it out with a friend. You could discuss this and see what comes out. You can have them prompt you with some of these considerations and cues, or you can write it down. Just do it for yourself. You could talk into your voice app on your phone. Whatever is going to be most useful to you. So there's not one way to do it. And the cues that I'm going to give you, the considerations I'm going to give you, it's not the end all be all. You can follow a certain chain if you are inspired and additional thinking pops up. By all means, you can follow that path. That is the great thing about visualization, is that when you let your mind kind of freely wander and you let your interests kind of open, the possibilities really do appear. So let's get started. The overall question that you're going to ask yourself to guide yourself in this visualization process is, what do you truly want to see, to experience, and to create this coming year? It's a very broad, overarching thing. And just taking a moment to ask yourself that question, what comes up for you first? Is there a particular part of your life, having hopefully just reviewed some of the key learnings, big moments, successes, challenges from the year before? What jumps out to you as an experience that you want to create for yourself in this coming year? And if you want to take this in a little bit of a different way, if you could go forward in time, you could fast forward to a specific moment this year. Where would you fast forward to, and what would that experience be like? Maybe it's the end of your year. Maybe it's looking at a particular relationship. Maybe it's looking at a particular situation that you have in your life, with business, with friends. Maybe it's you looking at your finances and celebrating financial wins. Maybe it's things that you're really looking to cultivate in your home. What do you want to create for yourself this year? Try to visualize and detail out from what's coming to your mind all of the experiences and details that you can note. It could be a very general topic or area, but spend more time with it and think about what you would see, what you would smell, what you would hear, what you would feel, what you would taste. Really dive through the full sensory experience of that moment in the future where you have achieved this part of your life. What does your life look like? What is this achievement for you? Is it just one part of your life, or does it include a connection and alignment of a number of sections of your life? And when you feel like you're done, when you feel like you're there, I want you to ask yourself, what if I had more resources? What if I was less afraid? What if I had more energy? What if I had more support? Try to make an effort to bring down the conditional thinking that we like to layer on our dreams. And what could you do with that experience if you pulled down the walls a little bit more, if you opened yourself up, if you had more skills in a particular area, if you didn't have the fear of having a conversation with someone, whatever it might be that's sort of holding you back, what could you do with those limitations gone? And try to reimagine that moment of your year. Can you see a little bit different of an experience? Note what you observe. Try to define as much as you can of what that success feels like for you in that moment. And like I said, it might not be just in one area, it might be multiple things. It might be a career success that impacts relationships and finances and environments around you. A number of different areas in your life could be touched. But what is it that you really want to create? Knowing that the limitations are lowered. And also looking at this future moment for yourself where you have created your year exactly as you wanted. What are you most grateful for in this moment? What are you grateful for? This is your future self. Maybe it was the success that you're experiencing, it was contingent on a person, a relationship. Maybe it was you going ahead and taking a course. What are you grateful for in that moment, this future moment where you have achieved success? You've created something, you've overcome limitations, and you have reached the goals. What would you say you are most grateful for? And just note what comes up. They might be real specific and they might be very broad, but just allow your mind to go there. Now, finally, as you wrap up your visualization, take a look at what you've documented, organize your thoughts, and see if there's maybe 2 or 3 big areas that you see you focused on in particular to get to this specific experience in the future. Are there 3 sections, 3 kind of main areas that you could set an intention upon now to get you from where you are to where you want to go? So for example, health, I think, is always a real big focus for a lot of people, because without that, we really can't push ourselves to all the levels of success we want. What are those kind of key areas that made up the success and experience of that moment? Maybe it is looking at your fitness, your mental health, and perhaps it could be something like you learned some new skills, you learned a new workout, you took on a new partner that helps hold you more accountable and is really helping you drive success so that you're not mentally overloaded anymore. What areas can you create a meaningful intention behind? What would you say would be the direction you would need to work in order to get from where you are to that future success? Think about it purely as a direction. Start with that direction. And I would say you could look at probably 2 to 3 really big parts of your life. I always typically focus around like career, finance. I usually do a little bit of like a temperature check on like relationships and my home environment. And then I'm usually focusing in on health. That kind of gets me the insight that I need in order to create my intentions. But they're going to be different for you than they are for me and for this person over here and for your friend over here. Don't let the outside influence your direction and your intentions. This comes from internal. This is where you've chosen the future and you're laying out the path. So focusing on, we'll start, for argument's sake, we've got your 3 sections of your life. You've got your direction for each identified to say, in order for me to go from this current moment where I stand to that success in the future, I would need to do this in this area of life. And then you can dig a little bit deeper. You can go, what would specifically, and might be just the top of your head, the things that jump forward the fastest, usually with an intention that aligns with your internal motivation, with your internal purpose. You're going to see opportunities for goals come up pretty readily. It might be like, well, I need to learn a new skill. I need to bring on a partner for my business. I need to start saving more money, whatever it might be. Allow those thoughts to come out. Allow those goals, those key areas of focus to come out, and explore each of those areas, each of those intentions, until you can get them to a place where they're not hard to remember, and also they make sense to you and they resonate well. They resonate as something that you feel aligned and connected with. Now, you can spend more time reorganizing. You can spend more time thinking about, specific tactics to reach your goals. But that's where this practice kind of stops for right now. We have our intentions. You might have some directional goals as well identified, but this is really the practice that helps you identify the directions. From here, how you carry that forward, that is a whole other kind of series of steps. But coming back to the main purpose of today, having a direction is still going to give you not just marching orders, it's not going to give you just a plan, but it's also going to give you flexibility when things change, when energy levels change, unexpected moments happen. So come back, put this list of intentions somewhere you can access regularly So you can remind yourself these are aligned intentions. Internally, they're aligned with you and what you really want. That is all I have for today. I hope you can check out my meditation for intention setting as well. But let me know if you have any questions, and I hope that this is a wonderful year for you. Let's go out and make it a successful one.